There's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to it be so's a humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord, yeah, yeah.
All right, well, here we are again. Okay, this is New South Christians. I'm David Fuquay, and we have a very interesting person on today. I got to admit first, I've had her in class this semester in macro, and she's a nice person. I can tell that by the way she carries herself, but I haven't talked to you too much. So
no, you haven't.
We're getting ready to find out some stuff right now, but I think you're going to be a good guest, because I always try to tell people when they ask me, you know, when I say it's New South Christians, a lot of people, do I have to be a Christian? Well, of course not. It's all about Generation Z and the next group that's coming. There's like 88 million of you, and you're going to change everything. It's like in class today, we were talking about ethics and morals, that you're going to define them, not my generation, yours. And things get passed down, so what you believe or what you don't believe. So the whole point to me of this podcast is really just people from your generation sharing what you think and why, the way you approach stuff. And we'll talk about a little politics too, because the elections get ready.
Fun.
Well, the elections get ready to fire up. So let me just introduce you, and then you can introduce yourself. So this is Kendall in the Middle College, correct?
I am.
Okay, she's a Sumner County person, born and raised.
Born and raised,
Absolutely.
Yes. Born in Nashville.
All right, so just go ahead and introduce yourself, anything you want to share, and then we'll just go ahead and get started.
I'm not sure if I have anything particularly interesting to say. I'm not that.
Everybody's got something interesting to say.
I don't know. I have a lot of animals, but that's about it.
You own a lot of animals, and that's
I do.
it? Well, where do you live? I mean, you don't have to give us an address, but what is your area?
I have two houses, but Gallatin and Portland.
Okay.
Portland, I kind of live like close to the middle of the town, so it's not super abandoned, not nearly
Super
as
abandoned?
many fields.
Okay.
Still a couple, but
Okay.
not as many. And in Gallatin, I actually live really close to the square.
Okay.
And really close to Benny Bill's. So
Okay.
there's a lot of like heavily trafficked area, but it's a really nice, comfortable neighborhood.
Okay, that's cool. Well, we were talking first. I always kind of start off with certain things about beliefs or whatever. So you were sharing with me. So how do you identify yourself?
Pagan.
Pagan, okay.
Yes.
So for anybody listening to us or whatever, how do you define pagan?
To me, I would say a belief in nature.
Okay.
I think,
All
more
right.
than a god or gods, nature.
Okay. So if you were going to, let's say, if I was going to do a traditional pagan worship on a religious day, could include just going out into the woods, just enjoying nature? Is it? I mean, how many different forms can that take? Because I know people define it differently.
It does. And it does take a lot of forms. And it can honestly be anything from going on a hike to prayer,
Okay.
depending on what kind of belief you practice specifically.
So what would you be praying to, I guess?
Well, there's a lot of like pagan gods too. I just
Okay.
don't believe in any of them personally.
Okay.
But often a lot of Greek gods or Roman gods are tied in with paganism.
Yeah, I remember from my
and those tend to
world
be
history
worshipped.
classes, yeah.
But for me, it's more so just like connection.
Okay.
Like playing in the dirt even can be enough to kind of ground you a little bit.
Okay.
Be a little more in tune with what the world is like.
Okay.
Understand what is happening to our environment.
Okay.
As far as pollution or any of that goes. Just kind of like
So the earth is
caring.
very important to you.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
So I mean, you share as much or as little as you want, but how are you received? I mean, we're obviously in the Bible Belt. Your generation's very uniquely different. I mean, so I don't consider you an outlier, because 40%, based on what I've read, are people that classify themselves as none. So they don't go by, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, so I don't define myself by the church. So you actually represent the majority, not the minority. But when you do identify yourself as a pagan, how is that received? I mean, people like cool, or, I don't know.
I think it fluctuates so vastly. I think the number one response I get is questions or curiosity,
Sure.
which I love. I think that's great. I feel like being questioned is how anything should be done.
Okay.
And I also enjoy doing that for other religions as well. I love
Okay.
learning about Christianity and like Judaism, all of that. I think it's fun.
So you don't
to
feel
learn.
any kind of negative vibe or any
Not
kind of
at all.
negative energy? Or
I do. I've gotten a lot of responses that were really negative in the past, and probably will in the future, from multiple different religions, because a lot of religions are based around denying others as existent, and theirs is correct, whereas mine is kind of like they're all mutually correct. So it tends to be a little upsetting to people that I don't think that any religion is mutually exclusive. And I've gotten some really, really negative remarks or tried to be forced into the church before, which was not really fun for anybody involved.
Now, do you have a lot of past church experiences, or is there?
I have. I enjoyed going to church for a while just to learn, and I was upfront about that. When I started, I went to a really, really inclusive church that I absolutely adored. But when I started going, I said that I probably wasn't going to partake in the belief at all, but I wanted to learn why people thought the way they did where I lived.
So that was no problem, or anything?
Not at all. They actually really, really supported it and wanted more people to learn, even if it wasn't a faith that they believed in. It was a very open church in comparison to a lot, but I adored it, and I loved being able to go and study like it was a class almost.
Well, a lot of things just pop up in my head while you're talking, so this isn't me ambushing you. But what you were just saying a minute ago, you were talking about, as far as being pagan, how you're perceived and how people kind of treat you and stuff. Do you feel like that your generation is better about that? I mean, I'm not asking you to condemn my generation or others, but I mean, if you had come up and walked up to my grandmother and said you were pagan, and she was not a well-educated woman, but she read her Bible and stuff, I think she's immediately going to start associating you with something to do with demons, not something to do with... Now, she'd be sweet to you and nice because you have to be as a Christian. That would be hypocritical if I wasn't, but she would think, oh my, she's lost. So I didn't know...
I have gotten that response a lot.
But how do you feel like you're treated by the different groups? Like, with your generation, do you feel like you guys are more open, you're more... Because, I mean, you're obviously the majority as far as the percentage.
I think it depends on who I'm around.
Oh, okay.
So in my high school, I was received relatively poorly, but that's because I was in the Hicks. Like, it did not get more southern than that. So there was a lot of a more poor reception than there is once I got here. Once I got here,
yeah, that's a good question. So Vol State, well, I mean, don't you think people get a little older? I know you're in the middle of college, but then also at college,
everybody kind of learned to mind their business.
Well, but to be fair to you, I mean, a lot of people argue that if you're a real conservative, I don't want to say Christian because that lump people together, but in other words, a lot of people view college as one of the problems. You said, oh, it was okay here, everybody was open to it. Some people, that's one of the criticisms of college, that we're very open to everything, and sometimes we perpetuate things that other people don't believe. So if I'm real conservative, traditional Christian, just hearing you say that, go, see, that's what I'm telling you. That's what college did. She opened up her mind. Look what she's lost.
I respect nothing more than the ability to find your own beliefs.
Yeah, I know that.
I think that it's amazing that people can go somewhere and start thinking for themselves individually. I have a lot of people in my family who actually transferred from paganism to Christian.
Oh, okay.
Because they were able to go somewhere and like actually think.
Okay.
They weren't just raised as this is what you should be and here's why. And I think that's a really important thing. I feel like everybody should be able to find themselves in their own way.
Oh, for sure.
Which is why I studied so many different religions before really defining myself as anything.
Right. But you know what I'm trying to say? There's a lot of people that feel like your generation, one of the reasons why I did this podcast was because when I started, obviously I teach, in front of Gen Z, and that's been the largest group for the longest period of my career. And I just find it very interesting. But then I started becoming very curious about how this thing called the Bible Belt is changing from a conservative to, pagan. I've had pagans, we've had Reformed Catholics, we've had this, we've had that. I mean, everything you can imagine so far, and we're still having new things pop up. So this clearly isn't grandma's old Bible Belt.
Oh, gosh,
so
no.
It's totally changed. And so for me, it's like, okay, so what are 88 million people bringing with them? You represent
Fluidity.
one piece of that. Bringing what?
Fluidity.
Fluidity. I was saying, how do you describe fluidity?
I think that it's going to be crazy because I feel like it fluctuates so much that it might be a bit of a problem. Because a lot of, I guess, politics, will start there.
Sure. Okay.
For all of history have been like divided on a line of a hard one direction or the other.
Oh, yes.
And I think we're getting a lot more to a place where it's like a Venn diagram of overlapping beliefs and like separated ones, especially in my generation and even millennials. You can see where it started. The like overlap of general ideology.
So how do you think?
Like there's a hard right and a hard left much.
So okay. Well, is that like how we define relationships now? Whenever I'm binary, I'm non-binary, I'm this, I'm not. I mean, some people sit around, by the time they're done sharing with me, I really don't have a clue what they are, what they think, or where we're going.
I don't have a clue what I am.
Okay, so that's total fluidity. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
I don't
probably.
define it at all. It changes each and every day.
It doesn't necessarily change every day, but it changes over time like anything else.
Okay. So do you think, how do people receive that when you're talking about relationships? Because those are kind of the most ingrained things we see from our parents, is our first serious relationship we see. There was a sociologist, I read her book, and that's what she talked about. Well, obviously that's changed quite a bit because mom and dad aren't as fluid as your generation is, do you think? Or maybe they are.
Well, my parents were a little different.
Maybe I'm out of touch, huh?
My parents were a little different. I actually grew up with a lot of fluidity because my parents separated when I was born.
Oh, okay.
So they were never together. They were never the strong relationship that you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
My mom was dating a woman my whole life. So, and my dad actually married my stepmom, had 2 kids, and now I have half siblings. But my
that is interesting.
My stepmom and my dad also had another partner because they're poly. So fluidity was.
So when you say poly, that's, I mean, I know some of the words, I try to look them up.
Polyamorous.
Polyamorous. I want to make sure I got it right, because people listening or watching, you know, somebody, they don't have the ability to raise their hand and go, poly what?
Yeah, so, polyamorous is just the ability to have a relationship with more than one person.
Okay, right.
And so fluidity was always apparent in my life.
Okay.
And so I guess it was always that way for me. I didn't have a structured relationship from my parents. Okay. So I never really felt the need to have one myself.
Okay, well that would make sense. Well, if you flow with the sociologist that I use, that's one of the things she says. The first serious relationship that's modeled for you, obviously, is your parents or whatever family you're raised in, and that has a huge impact on how you view it. It's like she was trying to describe why some men are abusive to women. Well, if you watch your dad beat your mom, I'm not saying you're guaranteed to go out and do it, but she's arguing more likely you picked up very negative cues on a relationship by doing that. So it's not surprising sometimes when they become abusive like that.
I agree to that entirely.
Yeah, okay. Well, some other stuff I'm curious about, because you keep saying stuff and I find myself thinking of more and more ideas. So you feel accepted in the South? You don't feel prejudged like the old days and everything? And you said that you're more accepted here.
I wouldn't say that I don't feel judged.
Okay.
I would say that it doesn't affect me.
Okay.
Like it used to.
All right.
I think when I was younger, it was definitely a lot more of an issue. I was very severely bullied in a lot of ways.
Okay.
To almost a scary extent.
But why do you think you're bullied? I mean, you look, I mean, I don't judge how you dress, but I mean, you look very normal for what I'm used to teaching around. I don't, the fact your hair's colored, I've been teaching high school for 24 years. Changing your hair color hadn't been a big deal for me for a very, very long time. So I don't see, you know what I mean? I mean, you're not spiked and, you know, I mean, when I go out to California, my sister lives, you see some serious alterations, I mean, extreme. Here, this is, I would consider very mild.
Yeah, I'm not
But then
really
I'm not
sure.
you, I'm not walking in your shoes, so I don't know where you are, so.
I'm not really sure why it was so poorly received. It's a question I ask all the time.
Right. I mean, you seem very nice. I mean, you've always been pleasant the times I've talked to you.
I have no way of knowing why other people think the way they do, nor do I have any way of changing it. I just know that sometimes I've gotten received very poorly, whether it be for religious beliefs or ideology, whatever it is.
Well, how do you handle those conflicts? Do you?
I think more than anything, I just talk about it.
Oh, okay.
More often than not, I don't want to fight fire with fire. Mm-hmm. If you dish an insult or try to get angry at my
So you don't
existence,
go down to a person's level?
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, okay.
If you tell me that I am wrong, I'll ask you why you think that way.
Okay.
And if all the answer I get is because that's what I was told, think about that.
Uh-huh.
Why is that what you were told? Why is that
Okay.
what you believe I should be?
Okay.
And so that's always kind of the response I give, and it always tends to get the same reaction of,
Okay.
ooh, I don't really know.
Well, let me ask you this
And then
real
they get
quick,
annoyed and walk
and then
away.
we'll move on to some other stuff. So what do you think happens to you when you die? Because do you think of heaven and hell as existing, even though you don't identify as a Christian, or do you believe we just return to the earth, and from the earth we came, the earth we return?
Ooh, hard question. I don't think that any of the afterlife is mutually exclusive.
Okay.
So heaven and hell can be just as existent to those who believe in it.
Okay.
For the same reason that I think if you're a Christian and you adamantly believe in heaven or hell, that you'll end up in one of those places.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that affects where I'll end up because I don't have the same denomination.
Okay.
For me, it's more kind of like a circle of life almost.
Okay.
Giving back as you have taken.
Okay.
So, you know, once you pass on, maybe you'll become some random leaf
Okay.
as part of that energy that can't be destroyed.
There you go. Okay.
Or maybe part of a cat somewhere, part of the grass somewhere. There's no real telling how that energy is dispersed.
Okay.
But at some point, it transfers into something else.
Okay.
Whatever it may be.
And go through the cycle of life, huh?
Yeah,
There you go.
pretty much.
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't mean to be negative, but some of the research I've shown says a lot of people in your generation aren't very optimistic about the future. How do you feel? I mean, I've got you in economics class,
Oh,
so
Lord.
we talk about
Okay.
economic stuff, but you know, if you're looking at, we've got this crazy election getting ready to start. That's going to be crazy, I think. And then where we are right now as a country, a society, or whatever. But for some reason, a lot of people in your generation don't feel very optimistic about the future, addressing global warming, all the other climate changes, and all that stuff. So,
Well, I'll start this off.
you think
I'm a
we're rolling? Are we
deadly-
okay? Or
I'm a deadly optimist.
oh, you are. Oh, well, that's good. I like that.
Something like that. I will say our economy is terrible. It's god awful.
Why? Since I'm your professor, I can't let you slide on that. Why do you think it's awful?
Have you seen the debt charts?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course, I teach this stuff. I agree with that. I don't have any problem with that. But looking forward,
just
I mean,
think
as a
there's a lot
young
of
lady,
ways.
you're in the middle college. I mean, your school's pretty much paid for, right?
Hopefully.
No,
As long as I can
mean,
pass
as long
my
as you
math
keep
class.
passing, your math class or whatever. I mean, but do you feel good? Are you optimistic about the future? Because a lot of these things I read, I mean, you got to remember, you're the largest generation there is. Okay, like today in class, we were talking about ethics, morals, whatever beliefs are. Your group is so large, you are going to drive this whole wagon. You know, it's like pulling a wagon. Which way are you going to pull it, right? On issues of religion, on issues of economics, ethics, morals, you know, just keep going. That's what it is. And so a lot of people are trying to tap into, well, do you feel good? Are you optimistic? I mean, if you are, that's going to have a huge impact. If you're negative, you think this
I
thing's
don't think
headed
there's
the
any
wrong
point
way?
in being negative.
Okay,
I see no point in saying, oh, this is going to go really poorly before it hasn't been tried.
okay.
I would rather
Good.
see the effort put forth before
Okay.
thinking, oh, because
Well, since you brought it up, then how you feeling about this election? This will be, well, wait a minute, you're pretty young. I think I asked you, okay, so you're not gonna get to vote in this election?
No, I will not.
Okay, well, you still got an opinion. Okay, so if you could, because this is the first big election for Gen Z, and based on what they did in the 2020 election, the turnout was the largest of any other group we've had.
Lord have
In other
mercy.
words, you're gonna determine the election.
I could not tell you how I would vote.
Really? You have no thought at all right now?
I don't know. I have read about it and looked into it and studied like my life depended on it, and no way.
So you
that I
have no
can see it
vibe, no
going.
feeling, no nothing.
I can't see any of it going super well.
What
be
happened
honest.
to your optimism? We were optimistic just a minute ago. Now you
Well-
tell me I don't see anything going well. What's the deal?
Our candidates are kind of interesting for sure.
Okay.
I can't see any of them doing anything great
Okay.
to balance out the atrocities that will probably happen.
What is it? What atrocities? Do you think there's going to be a riot, or do you think if President Trump loses, there's going to be a Civil War riot? Do you think,
I think either way, it's going to go really poorly.
Okay.
I
Now,
think
why do you
if-
think that?
I think if Trump loses, there will be a lot of backlash that can be really harmful. I think that if it's the
Some
other way
people,
around,
a lot
there
of
will
people
be-
agree with you. They think that's not just a threat.
I think it's kind of scary. We've already seen.
Is
some
this
of
your
the
version
effects.
of what you thought elections would be like? Because I got to tell you, I'm a lot older than you. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Goodness, I have never even thought that it would be so scary
Yeah.
to choose someone to lead a country. Like,
Well, I can see people being passionate, but it's the threat of violence, I got to tell you,
Right, and
that bothers me, because like the January 6th riots, those weren't like out in a field somewhere. Those were like in the Capitol. And I don't know if it's a vision of reverence. I visited D.C. many times, but it's just, okay, this is the best way I think it just popped in my head. It's like when I was a kid, if you went to your grandmother's house, there are certain words you just don't say. Grandma's gonna smack you if you do. My mom's the same way. There's 5 words if you say, you're still gonna get slapped. She's not gonna put up with vulgarity. Well, it's kind of like when you go into that house, you become a different person. Well, it's kind of like to me, when I go to the Capitol and I see those historic buildings, I know it's a place where we disagree and we kind of argue, but it's not supposed to be a place we go riot, threaten to hang people. I mean, they were looking for the Speaker of the House, they were looking at the Vice President with ropes, wanting to hang them. Well, that wasn't my vision of what I saw political change looking like.
you hear it a lot. You hear this like sentence that violence isn't the answer, but I really do truly think that it isn't. I don't understand what happened to like civil debate. Can we please sit down and talk about it, communicate, maybe even a little bit?
Well, we're in the midst of what's called 2 primaries right now, where there's no competition and we don't even have debates. Who knows if we're even going to have one? It's like, so how do I get to see somebody articulate what they represent so I can make a better informed decision?
I feel like that's also a lot of the problem is we're not seeing like
That's
active
what I'm saying,
political
yeah.
campaigns. So people are just going, well, I'm going for the right. I'm going for the left.
I'm going for the right and left.
And
Okay.
just going with that, whether they actually agree with their beliefs at all, especially since there's so much overlap in both.
Well, if you could, without telling me who you would vote for if you were voting, so then what do you want out of the president? Since you're a different generation than me, what do you want? I mean, what are you looking for in the ideal candidate? It doesn't have to be these 2, so just give me the ideals you're looking for.
Comfort. And to
Comfort.
to elaborate on that, I want to be able to afford to live.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest ones. Nobody can afford to live right now unless they were given money from their family,
Okay.
which is crazy.
So you worry about being able to afford living, just
Yeah, I'm
having
a
a place to
server.
live, et cetera.
I'm a server. I make $2.13 an hour.
Now, is it okay to ask where you serve?
Cracker Barrel.
Oh, okay. So they only pay you $2.14 to serve?
You get $2.13 an hour plus tips.
Wow. I
$2.13,
didn't know
and
it was
it
that.
hasn't
I didn't know it was
changed
that
in
low, to be
years.
honest with you.
Minimum
No.
wage also hasn't changed in years. It's
Yeah.
still 7-something.
Yeah.
It's been 7-something.
Yeah.
Nobody can afford to live off of the money that we're making.
Okay.
I would like to see a change in like the ability to live and
Okay.
function
I
as a human
understand.
person.
Anything else? What other qualities are you looking for?
I think care for community,
Okay.
like general. A president is supposed to be someone who cares for the country
Sure.
as a whole,
Absolutely.
not one half of it.
Yes. I know exactly where you're going. Yeah.
I don't want to see catering to just one type of person. I want to see communication, debate, and compromise in a way that can help lots of people.
It is amazing how divisive we've become. It's like you're either with me or you're against me. I mean, it's all one way or all the other.
And I feel like there can be an in-between. It feels all yes or no, and I feel like there can be something in the middle there.
Good.
I wish there was more compromise
Okay.
in high seats of power. I also really, really would like for them to not all be ancient. I know that's probably something you hear
too
a lot.
old?
Why is somebody that old running the entire country?
Yeah. So you think, well, this is
You
an interesting
aged out
question.
already.
Since you're the younger generation coming up, would you put an age limit on president?
Lord have mercy, yes.
So
If you can make a youngest one, you can make an oldest one
okay,
too.
well, that's a good point, because there is, I think it's 35 is the minimum that you have to be to run for president. So is 85 the highest, or is 80, or is 75? What would you put as the limit at the top?
70 at max.
Okay. So you got from 35 to 70, and that's it.
Honestly, yes.
Okay.
It makes me crazy. If you
I
look
haven't
at,
thought about. I haven't asked anybody that.
If you look at the most generally
Mm-hmm.
effective presidents, where you see some of the most development, whether
Well, they need the
Either
energy.
side you believe.
Well, energy too, perceived or real. You want to see somebody energetic, right?
And
Okay.
whether you are right or left or anywhere in between,
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, you can see the consistency of development
Right.
with the younger presidents. A lot of the people who are younger and working in major positions tend to do a lot better. And we see that statistically, but we just don't enact that at all.
Well, don't you feel, and I've said this in class, I really feel from the bottom of my heart that this is the last election we should have people this old. And I don't view age as always, I'm not saying you view it as a total negative, but there does come a point. You do, your memory, your thing, I mean, we all slow down as we age. I'm not saying you still couldn't be president, but there is a lack of energy, enthusiasm, incitement. It's just not being captured, I don't think.
You're disconnected.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Well, that's a good point.
Have you ever talked with your great-grandparents or your grandparents and tried to have a conversation with them and it's like talking to a wall? That's how our presidents have been.
Right.
If I can't have a conversation with you in modern language, you should not be running the country.
That's interesting.
And that's a hot take, but I think it's true.
Well, I think that's a lot like how I feel in class sometimes.
Senile.
Well, I feel like that in class sometimes.
Ancient.
I feel like that in class sometimes with you guys. When you'll mention, in fact, that happened today. They mentioned some social media influencer or something, and they said the name, and I was like, I never heard of that person.
I don't know either.
Everybody starts cracking up laughing. I'm like, well, okay, there you go. We've hit that point where we're crossing. I'm too far down the road.
And it's one thing, it's okay for there to be a generational gap,
Yeah.
but it can't be so substantial that you can't communicate with one another.
Oh yeah.
And
I
feel
think
that's
that's
where my
really
limit lies. Because I can still have a healthy conversation with my grandmother, who's
Okay.
60-something.
Okay.
But once you get past that to her mother,
Wow.
she asked me if I want cake, and that's our conversation.
Oh, is that the end?
Yes.
Well, that's a nice one at least. you know.
She's an absolute sweetheart, but still, you don't have the functionality to run a country.
Well, can I ask you this? This might be a little too personal, so you don't have to
That's
answer
fine.
if you don't want. But you have a grandparent and a great-grandparent, or
I
just a
do.
grandparent? Well, how does your great-grandparent relate to you? The
What
pagan, the way you
She's
think,
actually
the way you
Christian.
dress, the way you. Oh, okay.
But she's super supportive.
Okay.
She
It's
loves
my
hair.
Kendall, no matter what.
Oh, without a doubt. She's
Okay.
always been super supportive. She's always been a very, very loving Christian.
Okay.
A lot of the way that I grew up was in a very, very loving Christian
Okay.
way. So my family is pagan, but only my closer family. It
Okay.
stops at my grandparents.
Okay.
So it was kind of like the millennial generation that kind
Oh,
of
okay.
swapped that out. But it's always been very, very love-filled.
Okay.
And of course, there's still beliefs of what causes you to go to hell, that kind of thing.
Right.
But it was always very love thy neighbor.
Uh-huh.
And cherish those around you
Sure.
because life is more important than damning them after death.
Well, yeah, you got to admit that's hard not to argue with. I mean, it's like because you watch how
I
people
read the
are.
Bible,
well,
and
you
I don't think I
read how
understand
people
where
are
some of these
treated.
beliefs are coming from.
Well, love thy neighbor, love thy
I
enemy.
feel like
mean,
love is the most important thing in that
yeah,
book.
Well, it is. But reading it and living it are hard. They're not easy. I mean, come on. I've had neighbors that shot into my yard that I was deathly afraid of that made me furious. I didn't want to go over and love them. I want to go over and club them, you know? So how do you set that aside and go, okay, let me get this love going and go over there and truly exhibit charity, hope, all the things that are supposedly,
I think there's probably
in our heart.
balance.
Huh?
There's probably balance. I'm not sure if I've found it or if really anyone can.
Okay.
But I think you can look for it, and I think that effort is what gets you into whatever good place you believe in.
Well, looking down the road, could you ever see yourself going to church? I mean, I don't know why. I just thought of that.
I don't see why I wouldn't.
Yeah, because you were talking about being fluid. I mean, you can fluid back down that road, you know?
I feel like it's possible.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with a lot of the beliefs that are aligned. It just
Okay.
doesn't particularly suit me.
Well, let me ask you this, because we'll be wrapping up here in a minute. I'm curious about, and this just popped into my head, you know, all the controversies going on around the country with DEI and all these different things, and then there's all these issues about, you know, how I'm defined, pronouns. I mean, you know, just on, you know, all the current things that are going on. How do you think that is going? Do you think that's going well, or do you think that maybe we've made too much of it? Maybe we've made something hard that's actually easy? Because everybody seems to be arguing and fighting. What books are in the library at the schools? What's being allowed to taught? Like some of this conversation may not be allowed at a middle school or a high school even, depending on where it is. And I understand parents are upset. They're seeing things that are being introduced to their kids that they don't think they should be introduced to. So as somebody that may share some of those opinions, how would you handle that? Like, how would you make the parents of the other people feel comfortable?
I don't really think it's as complicated as people make it.
Well, so how would you handle it then?
A lot of those ideals that we're seeing come back in our generation, in the millennial generation, are ones that have been there long past any of these people's births.
Okay.
A lot of, like, if you really look into it, a lot of those identities that you're talking about, a lot of those genders or sexualities were present here even long
But they're all
before
hidden,
us.
like as our generation say, in the closet.
Kind of.
Like they used to say, he's special. You know, my dad's generation would say, he's a little, or my grandma would say, he's touched. Well, that's not a compliment, but it's also not hate-filled, but it's, the devil's got him.
There was a whole era where it was essentially beat out of people to show those differences.
To be gay in England back in the day, woo, that was, you were headed for some bad treatment there.
It was conform or die.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so once you get past that, you're able to open up a little bit more to the idea of difference.
Okay.
And a lot of people haven't.
Okay.
But I don't see why it would ever be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it can get overcomplicated, but I don't think it hurts anybody.
Okay.
I think that there are probably some things that even I don't agree with, despite where I fall on that spectrum.
Okay.
But I don't think it hurts anybody to say, I am this.
Okay.
It's complicated maybe, but it's not that hard to understand if you care. No different than me studying someone else's religion because I want to support them.
Okay. All right. Before we close, one of the things I always love to ask, I always like a positive. So tell me, where is Kendall going? What's the plan? Where's Kendall in 5-10 years? What will define Kendall's happy? There's a younger man or woman in the White House. There's she's got a place to live and she's economically okay. I don't know. Do you want to marry in a traditional sense, or is that out? Or would you like to have a family? No, or?
I feel like that's a lot of thought.
Well, of course it is. Hey, you're young. You're supposed to. You never think about these things.
I think about them, but not in any sort of like set way.
Okay.
Like
so you're not even in that realm of thinking about it yet, huh?
Sometimes, but
Okay.
not really like, this is my plan, you know?
Okay.
This is my life plan.
Okay.
I've never really planned it out. I've just kind of like thought about the next step.
Okay.
Like one step at a time, you
Well,
know?
okay, then where does Kendall want to go?
I want to live in a nice house, not necessarily
Okay.
huge. I like
Okay.
a smaller house,
Okay.
maybe a cottage type
Traditional
thing.
that's as conservative as it gets. I like that.
I like a little like cottage maybe. I
Okay.
would say a little smaller. I want to be decently well off,
Okay.
where I can like help other people,
Okay.
and afford to maintain myself.
So where do you see yourself as far as a career or something? What appeals to you?
I'm fluctuating a lot between that
Okay.
right now. Still trying
Fluid.
to yeah, definitely.
I'm definitely.
Still-
Well, that's very. That's
common.
That's common. That's so
I know people
the
who
more
change
you
their major,
talk,
like,
the more
8
normal
times.
you're getting to me. So it's like this is pretty conservative here. I want a house. I want this. I mean, those are just the basic, common things I think
I
that
think that's
define
what
us all.
everyone should want.
Yeah, that's
don't
what I'm
feel like
saying.
there's
I mean that
any-
as a compliment.
I don't
That's a
think
good
there's
thing.
any need to be like, I want a mansion and 17 horses and a ranch, and I just don't think it's that deep.
I want
think-
8 widescreen TVs in every part of the
I
house.
don't understand that either. I feel like you can be happy and peaceful.
Yeah, exactly. So
I have
anything
7
else?
people in my house, and we're tight, we're cramped a little bit,
Sure.
but we're happy.
Yeah.
Everybody eats dinner together. Everybody pitches
Oh,
into.
you eat dinner together?
Yeah.
Wow, that's very rare nowadays. That's not a
to be fair,
common thing.
often we eat it in the living room because our table's too small, but we all eat together.
Oh, that's great.
And
That's
it's,
pretty conservative.
It's a lot of give and take.
Sure.
Some people will like swap their roles each and every day. So
Yeah.
if one person makes dinner, the other one does dishes, etc. It's always like
Okay.
that. So it's a community.
Okay.
And I feel like the world would be better if there was more communities,
Well, good for you.
if there's more families.
So where do you go after Ball State?
Hopefully Illinois State.
Oh, Illinois State. Now,
Yes.
why? That's out of the blue. Why there?
Oh, Illinois has been my dream since I was little. I love
Really?
it there.
Are you from Illinois?
No, I just traveled a lot. I grew
So
up
you just rolled up
traveling.
in Illinois State and said, I feel this, huh?
Oh, grew up traveling. Went to California. Went to Florida a lot. So much Florida. Tired of Florida.
Okay.
Went to Chicago. When I was little, I went to New York.
Okay.
I travel a whole
Okay.
bunch. And I went to Chicago a couple of times and like spent time near the lakes, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And it was amazing. The
Okay.
people that I saw there and
Okay.
the way that they saw life, just gorgeous.
All right.
Yes, the crime's a little high, but where isn't it?
We'll work our way around that.
Where
All right.
isn't it?
All right. So before we leave, anything you want to share? Anything you want to leave us with?
This was awesome.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun getting to know you. So any words of wisdom, any words of thought you pass on?
I have to think. I should have come prepared with like a quote.
You don't have to come prepared for that. Just anything positive you want to leave us with.
Love thy neighbor unconditionally.
Sounds like a winner to me. All right, well, listen, that's it for today. I got to tell you, I loved having Kendall on. I love your final quote. That is perfect. That's a perfect way to wrap it up. So anyway, if you enjoyed what you listened to or what you watched here, share it with some friends. And if you go to Vol State or you're in the area, would love to have you on. So just reach out, and God bless everybody, and have a happy day.
People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to it be so humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord.